I
Okay,
appreciate
let's
your time.
check. Guys, if you watch this video, please let me know in the comments below if you want the second part or the third part after that.
Part two, honestly, I would promise everyone the complete untold story, the maybe 18 plus stories of all the different drama and things that have happened in the community, in my personal life, in Vegas, anywhere. If you guys want it, I will do it. I won't. There will be nothing I hold back whatsoever. So we'll see if that gets a little bit of a response. But
First of all, thank you very much for your time and for the interview.
yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for yours as well, my man.
I usually ask about kind of experience, personal experience, and the last thing people learn in the game. But I think in your case, your unique experience is that in addition to the game itself, you you organized a lot of teams and communities, so it's kind of outside of the game, but still in the game, like it's still game related.
It's really interesting how that happened, to be honest. Like the short path. I picked the game up the day it came out. I got two Quest 1s the week they came out. I brought one Quest 1 home and I just couldn't wrap my head around. I'm a bit older, like I couldn't wrap my head around having a console for just one person at my house. So fell in love with it during the tutorial, immediately went home and grabbed another one and was always on top of the big games that were coming out. The game like Population 1 is what I was waiting for sure. So I got it the day it came out. I remember coming home from work and late at night working at a bar and just popping the game on and I fell in love with it. It was a few months until I went from being a player to community organizer, event organizer, clan builder, league builder, whatever you call it. But yeah, definitely a bit unique of an experience for sure. I know that you've interviewed Papillion and I think a couple others that have spent some big parts in organizing communities and events as well. So
Kind of what made you think about the transition from just playing to organizing events and communities?
it was pretty natural. So it's funny. I'd never been on Discord before Population One, and I started to play the game quite a bit more. It became like a thing. Like no matter, when I woke up, then there was work, and I worked late nights. I'd come home, and it was just me and my dog and a couple hours of Population One. So
Mhm.
it started on Discord. Started really wanting to, get to know more people in the community. The social aspect of the game and just VR in general is really fascinating. And you meet people in here, you become friends with them and stuff. You hear about Discord, you just want to meet more people. And if you're social like that, and this is your new social area, and the pandemic had just started, really, I think, was starting when this all sort of happened. Ended up on the Sweaty Fight Club, which I was told was a place where all the best players hung out, and a cool social area where you could kind of meet people. And I'd heard that there was a tournament coming up, and I was like, I'm not that great a player, but that's something I want to play in. And got on there, and sure enough, Toiko, who was one of like the originators, and definitely the like originator of the current competitive scene, like began right there. The direct correlations, direct step by step from Toiko's first tournament to where the competitive scene is. Before that, there was some private stuff being run in MTS, and some other people getting buddies and making sense. But in terms of like the first step, if you want to draw a trail all the way back, it really began with that first tournament on Sweaty Fight Club. I got in that tournament and ultimately I played in the first game against Toiko in there. We definitely lost. Played with Miley Virus and Pink Ninja, girl from Scotland. Miley's someone I'm still friends with. Ultimately, I joined the Wild Wild West, WWW. It's a community that was born more for people trying to play without trying to avoid the toxicity in lobbies, not needing to kind of be on your friends list and squatting up. It was a small group of friends that just grew into something that's still really big today. And, I kind of got in there, and I think that the people in there kind of got the interest of like, oh, Whyzard, you run these tournaments and events, like what are they all about? And I started it's where I built my first team, Billy the Kids, with Mr. Awesome Jr., Deathshot, and Kid Cobra. Still a team now, a little bit different of a lineup with Iron Man and Colin the Five, but it's remarkable to think of how long ago that was, and that team's still there, playing under the same name, doing really well at the high level, and that was it. Creating that team right there, helping, seeing how much fun those kids had playing in the tournaments, and to see like it changed the game for them in a way that sort of organizing events and hosting lobbies kind of changed the game for me. That was it. I wanted to do it for more people, wanted to do it for more people in WWW. And I also wanted to, I couldn't play at that level. So I wanted to be a part of something that was playing at that level and helping build squads and manage players and get players kind of accustomed to comp and let them figure out most things on their own because I can't teach them as much at a high level. Was really that was the bug, and I was honestly hooked at that point ever since. It definitely is. been a big passion of mine. It's consumed my life in a lot of ways. But during the pandemic, it was everything to me. It was everything to a lot of people, especially those of us that are really social. The VR was an amazing escape that you could just pop on in your bedroom and not feel the loneliness and the sort of hollowness of society during the pandemic. And it was, I've never really looked back from there, to be honest.
You were a coach even before you started kind of doing the same thing in VR. What in your experience is similar and what's different comparing to kind of VR and real life experience of coaching?
It wasn't a while until I kind of looked back and was like, first of all, how did I like just naturally, it was not an industry sports I'd ever been in, Discord servers, gaming was nothing I'd ever been in, but like it was clear that I was good at what I was doing. Like, I remember trying to figure out like why, where's the correlation here with my life, and it was definitely really looking at soccer. Well, I wasn't just a coach. Built and founded my own soccer club. Lead players. My town's a really big soccer town. My high school teams were number 7 and 12 in the country way back before most of these kids maybe watched.
Wow.
And so my town's a really good soccer town, and you're kind of limited within your town against playing against other towns. I had a really good group of 12 and 13-year-old kids that deserved to be playing at a higher level, so I created a new club for them to play against a travel team. We started with the under 12 team, with boys coached by a friend of mine, and my under 14 team. And ultimately, over the course of a few years, we're a full blown soccer club. Not just building that club, also, training the players. As I said, like tactics is really like my bread and butter, really what I loved. Putting different players together, finding out what their strengths were, building a system that could take all of those different strengths and be successful on the field, not copying what anybody else was doing, anybody had necessarily
Mhm.
done before. So both the organizing of Weymouth United Football Club and both the coaching and tactics and mixing of personalities and skill sets of the players correlated directly into when it came to the WWW, Most Wanted, now Supreme, when it came to both organizing and building a community that like really, created a good environment for people to want to be part of it, to have fun, to develop in their game, but then also the individual squads and players and putting them together. So it was a pretty simple formula for me. It was kind of, I don't know how much similar it was to soccer. I guess there's probably more similarities than I would even give this part credit for. But when it comes to building squads to be successful in comp, which there's a lot of people out there that have done it. Definitely, probably that's the best thing I probably am at.
Yep.
The quick formula to building successful squads when you have players come into your clan and are trying to figure out how to be successful. Like I look at the personalities, do they mix well? Can they handle each other outside a game, and can they handle their athletic sort of mindset, through defeat and through like glory in game? You want to make sure that their weapons preferences are different. You want to make sure that their play styles are similar. And then after that, it comes down to two things. Like, are their availability the same? Do they have their free time to scrim and actually play in all the different options in ARC or other leagues at the same time? And then, boom, you put them all together. If they're committed and they want to keep doing it over the course of weeks, over the course of months, they're going to develop, they're going to reach their potential. And it's been a formula. It's really simple. It's worked really, really well for me for a year pretty much now. It's still working together in Supreme as we put a couple new teams together this season that are doing really well. So that was my passion. Definitely putting squads together, and most of them turn out to be my close friends. Whether it's Marake, Pintail, and Scanter, and the original Tombstone. Whether it's a lot of the other players that I've worked with throughout time, whether it's Danderson or Happy Papaya or any number of players, Mr. Awesome, and just kids that I've gotten really close with, and seeing them succeed is what kept feeding like my sort of my dopamine fix that I think that I get from the game, and what keeps me going for sure.
Nice. And comparing to your real life coaching, was there anything like different when you started to coach in VR? Like completely different.
just like trying to play poker in VR, like we do that quite a bit, and I can't look Danderson in the eye, and really read him. I can't really be 100% sure of where the kids' mindsets are at. Working with kids is really important to me. Like it's really different in VR. Kids can fake it, throw their headset off, and you're not quite sure. You don't have a connection with their parents to know how they're handling your coaching, handling their defeats, handling their things that might be problems with players on their team. You don't have their parents' feedback. And the second they take the headset off, you really have no idea how they're actually feeling. People get really hard on, if you ever played sports. Like, for example, if you've ever been in a hockey locker room of kids who are 12 years old, 14 years old after they lose a game, it's vile, it's profane, it's aggressive, it's sad, there's just so much going on, and by that they have this safe space with their friends, have their coach in there to kind of walk them through it. It's isolated. There's not people hating on them, shaming them, or telling them immediately that it's not okay to feel that way. That happens a lot in population. It happens a lot in kids, lose a game maybe, but they get back into the spectate mode, but somebody they just killed is dying to kind of like, rib them a little bit, them a little bit of crap. Doesn't necessarily even need kids. And then all of a sudden, you've got this kid boiled up in his emotions, getting pushed on by another kid or an adult that, might want to be shaming him. I've really always worked with kids a lot. I've tried to be really tolerant of a lot of their behaviors, work with them to change them, but not necessarily look to punish and shame them. And it's a lot easier in real life with kids on the soccer field. It's a lot easier to pull a kid aside, sit down, read him, know whether you're doing something good for him or whether you're kind of pushing him a little bit deeper.
A lot of people talked about skills, like specifically in the game, like what kind of weapon to use, how to use it, like tactics and strategy. But what you just talked about is completely different. Kind of, it's more about kind of resilience and keeping playing and the chemistry between people and kind of motivation, like keeping the motivation going.
Those are all way more important than someone's stats, someone's skills at the game in terms of being successful in a team game. One of the things I would just, the slogan for my soccer club, or one of the things that the kids heard every day or going before every big match is like, outthink your opponent first, outwork him next, and the result's going to be yours. I don't care how many times you can juggle a ball. I don't care how hard you can shoot it. If you literally outthink your opponent and you outwork them, and outthinking them comes into so many things. It's strategy, but it's also your emotions and in check. Like, how well do you handle like the worst moment in your day, in your game? How well do you handle your teammate's worst moment? Can you think properly in that moment to get your teammate back in line really quick before he kind of loses himself, or you guys kind of get at each other and let things go worse? So it's not just tactics. It's emotional thinking as well, that really goes into a lot of the success in any type of team environment, for sure. And it's definitely like, I very, very much get to know all the players that I work with really well. I take a lot of time to kind of figure out exactly where they'd fit best. If there's someone that's a solo great player that comes in and just, sees me as someone that can help them find a team for them. Like, it's not, the first things are, I'm not paying attention. Definitely not their weapons loadouts. It's definitely their mindsets, who they are as a person, like what they respond to well. Critical in any team's longevity, staying together, but also, their mindset in game. You can be fired up. You can be someone that gets really aggro after you lose. You can get really heated, angry at yourself, angry at your teammates, angry at your opponents. Like, it's not ideal, but like, if you're in the right team that can bring balance to those, if you're around the right people that can sort of channel that energy in the right way and not let it consume you and bring you back quick, you can be really successful. So it's not just necessarily looking for one type of personality. You have three different people playing together, and I could take anybody with any type of personality. With given enough time, I can find the right team. It's cool.
Interesting.
It's a puzzle. It's a mystery sometimes to try and figure out and unravel.
Again, it's not only about how you play now, it's about kind of building a like long-term map, how to progress and kind of how to grow mostly personal skills. It's not even like skills in the game, like it's communication skills, controlling yourself, right? Like listening to other people. So in this case, do you see how people you train, how they start kind of behave differently in real life as well? Like if you see, like if you have any glimpses of the real life.
It's a little bit tougher, but you definitely get to see it over the course of time, especially some players that I've worked with for a year or so, or been around for a year or so. In soccer, it's very much it's very obvious, and it's something that I always tell my kids and the players and the parents. Like, I don't want them to be better soccer players after this 2-3 year program with me. Like, I want them to be better students, better brothers, better children, better friends. Like, that's the program's designed for something much bigger than just skill on the soccer field. Most of your kids are not going to end up professional soccer players. Pretty much nobody here is. So like, what can you kind of, like, I want them to have fun. I want them to win. I'm not one of those coaches that wants a trophy for everybody or doesn't want the kids to value winning. But you got to learn how to lose. And with the kids, it's interesting. I love the under 14 age group. It's the most, like, it's crazy. You get the kids at 11, maybe 12 years old, and it's all about mom and dad and superheroes, and they leave me at 14 years old, and it's like all about boobs and Facebook and like stuff that they probably are, were never have thought about being into like years ago. So you see so much of it. You spend a lot more time with them off the soccer field, whether you're on trips for tournaments, whether you're working with them on problems they're having outside of soccer, and any number of things, taking them to, Gillette Stadium for a Patriots or Evolution game, depending on what kind of events that we're doing. But with Pop, it's a little different. I've spent quite a bit of time with kids and people in other games and mini golf and stuff like that. And with the closer you get with them, the more you hear about their personal lives. So again, it's not as much observing. It's trying to, maybe read whether they're being honest or dishonest with you. But it's the more you get exposed, most of what you see from them and their real life and how it's impacting them is something that they're actually telling you, which obviously to some degree you always have to take with a bit of a grain of salt. But the more trust you develop and that you give the kids, big things, privacy. It's like nobody's got exposure to these kids' parents, right? These kids don't want their parents knowing half of what they're doing in population one. There's a lot of adults that have said or done things, around children that like if it had ever happened at a soccer field, right, they would never be allowed back at the soccer field or around children like ever again. Um, so it's a totally different environment. So like with me, it is the kids know they've got a lot of trust. Sometimes kids come to me with things that's like, oh man, that's odd. Should I be hearing this? And like, there's nobody to tell anyway. It's not like I have access to their parents. And most of the times it's just about giving them the best advice, gaining that trust, but always letting them know, you know what, I can tell Whyzard anything. And like, if I don't want anybody else to hear it, like nobody else will. And that kind of trust allows kids to come back with you maybe at really more important moments. So again, working with kids is still like a really, really important part of like why I'm doing what I'm doing, why I'm still involved in the competitive scene and building communities for sure.
Nice. You mentioned trust a couple of times. Do you think that kind of kids at that age they learn to trust, and one of their ways to kind of to find a person to trust is this game? Like they trust you, they trust their teammates.
Think about the math. Like think about how much time the kids are spending in here, every single day of their life instead of doing what maybe, I don't know how old you are, but maybe what you were doing as a kid or what I was doing as a kid in like actual social environments, and how much you look towards whether you trust your teacher, whether you trust your sports coach, whether you trust the guy that runs the arcade or the new kids that you meet in a different neighborhood or your friends at school. Like a lot of what we do really, is developing like ways and like how to trust people and what works and what doesn't, like how that process works throughout your whole life continuously. Kids, definitely the kids they're in here, like I know someone that they have a problem with or that gave them a problem. It's you're not going to go talk to mom or your best friend about it and the same type of level that you'll talk to somebody else that might be a bit more familiar with the situation. Because at the end of the day, when you get kids out here in a group, the kids are definitely carry what we all do. We carry a different bit of an image out there into our social scenes than the person that you might meet back at home by yourself in your studies. I mean,
Mm.
in general, the kids really, they are looking, we are in their lives. This is their community. It's the biggest community aside from their school that they probably devote their time to. So at the end of the day, they are, just looking for people to identify, to help them sort of, when they can learn to trust a single adult or one good friend that continuously is there for them, gives them good advice. Like it's someone that they can turn to make sure that they're kind of doing the right things, learn from their mistakes, get advice on how to handle certain situations or certain people. And that just goes well beyond Pop One at some point. It has with literally dozens of kids I've worked with. Um, and it's remarkable, to find out when you get that close with them, like how much they really are seeking good advice or ways to handle certain situations. And I can just think of a couple recently that were just really like eye-opening to me, that I was involved in this conversation with a kid who I'd never actually seen before in person, and the kind of situation I was just trying to give them advice through is it's out there. So, there's people that do, enjoy worker relationships. If you are soccer coaches, if you are camp counselors, if you, are, guidance counselors at school, like it just like you can have those types of relationships. The communities are really the place to get them though. It's like you're a part of Supreme or Most Wanted or WWW. You're a part of Cobra Cartel or VRS or, any number of other communities out there. That's really where all of a sudden you kind of have your say, right? You're a part of something. You are a figure that other people are around, not just somebody they met in a squad. But then you're in those types of communities there. You like working with people. You want to have a bit more exposure and influence to people in a different way other than just playing with them. Those are the places to definitely start, and you can have a really profound impact on kids in this game and mental health and probably their maturation and development.
This is amazing. Like one of the aspects of the game that always amused me was social relationship and connections. That like it's just a character, right? It's a game, but somehow maybe because of the body language, maybe because I don't know, the game is too complex and you can grow and learn with somebody else on your side. Maybe it's because you need to protect other people and they protect you, but some kind of chemistry happening.
It's weird. Like, what is it really? I don't really think the telephones can do that, right? It's tough. Like, you don't really just randomly meet people on a telephone, but maybe you do in like a 2D game on your phone or something like that, or maybe you're on Tinder, or maybe you're somewhere else or whatever. Um, but like, it's really interesting. I've met lots of people in Population One. I'm in love with someone that I met in Population One. My best friends right now in my life that I am closest with, I met in Population, and then I've met them in real life, and it's remarkable how like seamless the transition is. Everything that you feel and feel like level that you think you can trust, what you think you like about the person that you've played a ton with in game and interacted with on Discord, it translates directly. When I met your friend Mud, like we literally met in a public lobby. I saw someone with like Boston over their name, and I kind of flew down to be like, "Yo, what's up?" Throw my Boston accent on. Where you from, dude? I'm from Southside. I'm from Weymouth. And Mud, your friend Mud standing next to me. It wasn't even the guy I was talking to. And he's like literally like, a 3-minute walk down the street from me. So that was really interesting. It took me a while. I'd never met anybody in gaming, and I kept like thinking Mud would be like this like geeky kid that kind of latched on to me for the rest of my life. So I pushed off kind of meeting with him for a while, and then it was crazy. Went and picked him up one day and went and grabbed coffee, took my dog for a walk, and it was just cool. Like everything that I'd liked about him was really awesome. And then had Marake and Reckless came and visited me from different parts of the country. It was really fun. Like Marake, I think I was the first person he met from the game. And just I remember the night before, like, dude, you're so crazy. You know what I mean? Like coming to visit me, like really kind of putting him through like the nerve wracking. But I knew I could. We had a really good relationship. And, the second that him and Reckless got there, it's just, these are the guys I met in game. There's no discomfort. There's no awkwardness or anxiety. It's just like, it feels awesome to be just as close to them as like I'm as close to you right now. And again, as well, my girlfriend and the woman I'm in love with, I met in game as well, playing Legions, and just it translates really well. So like, where is that secret? Like you said, is it the body language that like right now you can kind of see me moving around? Can you feel anything from my face? I don't really know. But how close are we? Is it because we're fighting together? Is it because I'm giving you bananas? Is it because I'm making you laugh? Is it because you're attracted to the skin that I wear? Obviously, the sexiest skin in Pop One, I think. Give Iris her due. But yeah, I don't really know the answer. It's really been mind blowing. Just there is a way that VR, maybe Pop One, it's probably other games as well, though, connects people at a level that is just as has just as much substance and just as much legitimacy as the connections we make, I think, in real life, if not more. Kind of,
Interesting.
you're out here,
Yeah.
you're uninhibited, flying around, shooting people, dressing up. Like you are uninhibited. You don't necessarily have as thick of a mask on as you might wear out in society or out in public when you first meet somebody in an environment where you feel a bunch of other people watching you too. Whereas in Pop, it's cool. Everybody else is going to disappear after this game. It is a mystery. I don't know if anybody's unraveled. I would love to hear somebody with a bit more of insight on the question talk about it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think another aspect of the game that personally, like for me, is very important is you have a chance to meet people who are completely outside of your kind of social circle, live in a completely different place, and somehow still you feel connected to them.
It's pretty cool. The world is obviously 42 years old. You know what I mean? The world has broken down so many barriers socially, and is still like fighting so hard to break so many more down. There's been so many accomplishments, so much progress. But here, like, I couldn't tell. I know you've got an accent. I don't really know where you're from. I would guess that you're French because I meet more French players that speak a foreign language. I play with a French player in comp. I'm not really sure though. Like I don't know what color you are. I don't know how tall you are. I don't know what religion you are. Like I just know you. And like for me personally, who interacts with people like the in a way that I don't know, it's a spiritual thing, you know, and like just like it can feel so much through your voice and through, you know, maybe through your mannerisms and stuff. But it's amazing. VR breaks that down. It leaves all that other stuff aside really until people are just vehemently racist or just bigoted or just so devoted to that those concepts that perhaps have been ingrained in them by where they grew up or by their family or just like their hate, you know, until those people really step into the conversation and kind of bring it in there, it's really beautiful how what a clean slate and how much all of those things that divide us or divide like older cultures and are just kind of absent.
What you just said reminded me. By the way, I'm originally from Russia, but I live in London, so maybe that's
Russia.
that's why a mix of.
I mean, I knew you weren't speaking French. I don't know why I said that, but like normally I would just, yeah, that's where I would guess. A lot of French players playing. So you're Russia, you're living in London. Okay, cool.
Mhm.
That's
What you just said reminded me. Like about 10 years ago, I visited San Francisco, and there's a big Buddhist center there. And every morning, like very early, in 5 a.m., they organize kind of a prayer slash I don't know meditation session. And one day, for no reason, they decided to do it over video conference. And the person who organized it in the Buddhist center, he said that we expected it would be like completely ruined, like not working at all. And what we found, it worked 99%, like almost the same experience that we had, like sitting, meditating in person, people traveling like 100 miles just to in five in the morning just to sit in the center. It was almost the same experience remotely.
that's interesting. I've
Mhm.
had something similar. I mean, you wonder how much, like especially these kids that have just grown up on iPads from the time that they can really even hold an iPad. You know how much like these digital, like their just interaction with the world is digital. So digital interactions over the course of time might just become something that are just do stimulate you as much as anything else. I've been to quite a few Buddhist temples. I love San Francisco. Living out in Utah, I really got into this thing at um, the Hindu temple down in Salt Lake and Mill Creek. It's called Ecstatic Dance. They're actually all over the world. They get together. It's like a drug-free environment. You can't wear shoes. You can't talk. It's meant to just be something like sacred for like the spiritual nature of dancing. And it's like Sunday mornings and like Wednesday nights, I think, when we're out there. For 3 or 4 hours, it's always electronic music. Opens up with yoga, and it's just like a place where you can just dance ecstatically. I guess is it's really well named. And it was just like when I got back here to Boston, I remember looking and being like, oh, I wonder what the community's like here. Like, this isn't an ecstatic dance type of
We can do it
community for
here in the
sure.
nightclub.
You know, we could absolutely, but it was interesting because the pandemic had hit and these places started to go online, and it was really remarkable actually to see like the numbers. Wasn't really like I'd rather just put my own music on and just let loose and dance in my room or whatever than kind of like take the time, me personally, to tune back into that community online. But I definitely put it up to support, and it did blow my mind how many people were kind of still tuning into that. The numbers were just as big as they would have ever. Another interesting, like, is it just virtual reality? Are we just evolving digitally in some ways, like, but it's magic in pop one.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's like what you just started with before I started recording. You said that this is your skin. You prefer this skin and you play only that skin, right?
I don't play only in the skin. I
Hmm.
play only generally in female skins. Hot Mess gets me to wear the Valentine's PJ every now and then. Why? I think I've always like in Skyrim, this whole game, even like my involvement in my Pop One community, like has always just been like a fantasy novel or like a new character in Skyrim, whether it's my alliances with people or the fights that I'm fighting and my enemies or just like the things that we're building, the kingdoms we're building. Like it's always just kind of like this fantasy novel in my head. She is just what I'm looking for, dude. She looks like she's ready to slip a katana out in the nightclub and just fly around, and that's like what I want to do here in the game. I love her colors. I love Iris. Definitely my favorite skin. It's my PFP. I wear it probably, 95 out of 100 games. I probably wear Iris. Can't even think of like I love the new skin as well. It's kind of like Iris's girlfriend to me. The new cyber skin for the cyber blade. Um, I have it on there. No, I don't. I got that. But yeah, so definitely Iris is it for me for sure. I think most people know. Sometimes I'll wear something else in comp for sure. I'll go with the Hattie athletic skin, the P1 or something because I'm a very targeted player. People, whether I'm in pubs or
Mhm.
whether I'm in comp, people see Whyzard. There's a lot of people, oh, let's go kill Whyzard for sure, and it's really easy to find me in Iris. So, but this is definitely the one for me.
Speaking about again your unique experience of observing how the team grows and evolves from outside, like, and you can be a part of the team, but you can also see a team kind of growing on its own. What do you think are the skills that like the most difficult to develop?
As kids especially, it's the emotions. Again, I'd bring it all the way back to that. It's managing the emotions, with mixing different kids in different teams. I mean, Christ, in Supreme right now, we've got two teams filled with kids. We've got Skittles and Austin playing on the same team with Ethan. Um, those kids there, they've definitely Skittles will draw a lot of attention, a lot of opinions from people. He's definitely he's got a lot to say at all times. He's got lots of emotions. He could be the nicest kid in the world one day, and he can really tell you how he feels on another day. On our other team, we got Natty Betts, we've got BLT, another controversial kind of kid, always with something to say, always with a lot of energy, and it's real hard as a kid, as 14 years old. This means a lot to them. These kids are the best players in the world at something that they do. They work hard at it. They train. They play. They play. BLT's an elite prep school basketball player. Watch his videos. This kid's incredible at basketball. I wish he'd be as quiet sometimes as he is when he's on the basketball court killing it. But he's out here, and when it's time to play pop, it's serious. This is Diamond Division. You're playing against Cobra Cartel. You're playing against, um, you know, Hurricane or Vortex or some of just the best teams in the world. Players like Shumachi or other players, whether it's Vape or Sleepy or Tech or whoever's been there forever before you got there. And this is it. You're not playing against another prep school team. You're playing against the best athletes in the world at something. It doesn't matter if it's not quite as big as Fortnite right now because VR isn't there. Like, you're still at the pinnacle. And when you get out there and you've got 6 matches to play, and the first match doesn't go well, or your buddy does something that cost you the game, something that you wanted like so bad, like, how do you handle those next few minutes? And who's there to kind of walk you through it? Are you with the right people to handle those? It's definitely the emotions and the ability to sort of stay level and to just realize it's just game after game. Every game's different. Every game's an opportunity to gain points, and every day is not going to kind of go your way. In terms of skills, in terms of like in-game things to develop, I think that attachment to like one gun is a really dangerous thing that a lot of kids will find what they slay with early on in pubs, and they kind of rock that the whole time, and they get into comp, and you realize like, hey, the Biohazard wants that gun. He's been here longer. He gets that gun. You don't get that gun, and you're not quite as balanced. I think it's really important to be able to pick up any gun that you find and be capable with it. Especially when the team finds 3 gold weapons, to leave 2 of them behind unless it's like a PX4 and I don't know, maybe an ump or something, which is actually a pretty good gun nowadays. It's like you really want to have a balanced skill set. You really want to challenge yourself in ways that you play out of your comfort zone. You not always like not being in that comfort zone is critical to any athlete, anybody trying to develop anything. The more you stay in that comfort zone, the more you are playing with what you're really good at all the time. The more it's going to cost you when you don't have that available. And the more it's going to cost your team too. We've got 3 players out there that completely rely on 1 or 2 guns each. That team's not nearly going to be successful as having 3 kids out there that are well-rounded, that can pick up and make the most of the weapons.
So, summarizing what you just said, in a team, emotions are important, like both managing and kind of paying attention to your emotions, then practicing and getting outside of your comfort zone. So, what else do you think teams usually can overlook?
It's a tough because I work with a lot of like top teams. I think Supreme. We've got four of our teams are in the top 8 in the world, maybe 9 in the world right now. One of the biggest challenges I think there, especially when you might be sitting at the very top, is like you've always got something to learn. Like if you look at every other sport out there, whether it's hockey or soccer or basketball or whatever, you've got decades and decades of experience there where players have began the game and then they passed it on to their kids and those kids passed it on to other coaches and other players. And over the course of dozens of decades and just 100 years or whatever, you've learned so much. There's books, there's YouTube videos, there's coaches in every single direction that you look at. It's real easy to go get different resources, different knowledge. It's maybe a little bit harder to develop unique tactics, unique abilities, unique ideas in those types of games, even though they still happen. New moves in basketball, whatever, new moves in hockey, like they still happen, but it's a little bit less likely. In Pop One, the elite players have been there at the very top for a long time, especially when you want to look at Cobra Cartel or Supreme or a number of other, the Hexalink, Vortex, Hurricane team, whatever they're called now. It's been together for a long time. It's still at the top. Like they don't have people to look up to in terms of better players, really. They don't have like legendary retired players like Royal Kai. No, I'm just kidding. To kind of look up to and still inspire you to be better, to match their records, to actually hit a level that they haven't hit yet. So especially maybe kids too. It's like there is so much for all of you to learn still. There's so much for all of you to like create new ideas, new everything in the game. Nobody's done any of this before. Like you are the first, you are the pioneers. There's always stuff to get better at. Like if your team's doing great and you're happy being number 6 in the world, like there's definitely a lot of things you can do to be number 3 in the world, number 1 in the world. Every player individually, every team tactically, every clan leader, every league organizer, like most of us are doing all of this first. We're the pioneers of a lot of things in this specific game. And I think that making sure that, that people realize that and that kids that like in Supreme and in Most Wanted and like we want to be the best and there's always things you can get better at. Like there's no point, it's cool to sit back and enjoy your success. Of course, this is all about fun at the end of the day. But like don't ever stop pushing yourself to like be, don't realize that like you can spend an hour trying to figure out something new and you probably will and it's something new that you can use in game and it's something that you can become known for. So I think that keeping kids challenged and making kids realize that like just being at the top here it's still really early. There's so many people that are going to come along and do new things.
As soon as we don't even know why population one works this way, kind of it's very difficult to predict how it's going to develop over time. But again, your wild guess, like what do you see any trends in kind of in maybe in how people keep playing, on how the game evolves?
Oh yeah, the game. I mean, I think you can look at a few things. Obviously, if you look at, let's just take it from like a Facebook or big box standpoint, like obviously Meta, Facebook, Oculus, I don't even know what it's going to be called next week, but they bought big box and brought it into Oculus Studios. And I think a lot of people were expecting a lot of major changes right off the bat. They didn't happen. You can start to see them happening now. I think that they are making some big announcements tomorrow, next week. There's some big things, big news coming out. Um, I think that you could see just by their marketing. There's probably only one game they mention as much, or maybe a little bit more, and that's Beat Saber. So it's out there. It's one of the top selling games. It seems like Meta really believes in it. It makes perfect sense. Like this is the most seamless, most mechanically sound shooter in VR. There's other really good games, don't get me wrong, but there's nothing that puts it all together quite like Population One does. Um, I think that the shooter, genre for esports and for just gaming in general is just absolutely massive. It has the tag of the Fortnite in VR. I think that the game's future is really bright. I think you can see recently, if you take an even deeper look, you have to assume that Big Box or Meta was paying some of those Fortnite streamers and some of the other biggest streamers in the world to play their game in front of 30,000, 40,000, 100,000 viewers for just a week. Like that wasn't random. Like somebody organized that, did that for marketing purposes, came out just at the time as they sort of flex their new muscle and their new might with the Metropolis where we're at now, which is absolutely brilliant. Shows the future of the game. I've been really like itching to get underground. I feel like we've just kind of stepped underground. If you've ever been under the map, the big box is not just what we see up here. The big box has plenty of room under too. There's all sorts of new metas and new things that I think that they're going to plan on bringing to the table. That being said, like does Fortnite come out with this amazing, VR build for the Quest 3? Is that going to like what kind of competition can come its way? I'm not really sure. But every time we see shooters come out, every time we see them adapt and evolve, it just seems like Population One's at least 2 steps ahead of the rest of them. I believe in the future of the game big time. I believe that those of us that are clan organizers and leaders and in the competitive community, that someday down the road, whether it's a year, whether it's 2 years down the road from now, that all the work and time that you're putting in now, if you can maintain your brand, if you can maintain your family together, if you can maintain the level of play, and like I think there's going to be a lot. The pie is going to be enormous, and those of us that have a small piece of it now or have a small spot on the bubble, when it blows up, there's going to be a lot of opportunities, not just for clan owners to make money off sponsors, but for graphics designers and content creators and athletes and you know just division organizers, event organizers, like all the little things in the community, people doing interviews, the Joe Rogan of Pop One. There's going to be a lot there. And those of us that are here now are definitely the first. We've got a big piece of what's here now, but it's a really small pie compared to what it needs to be in order for any of us to sort of get rid of our day jobs and focus on this for the rest of our lives. But I believe big time in the future of Pop One. I believe in the quality that is coming in future updates, and what Big Box is doing and what they've always done is something that I've always been really grateful for. I think everybody should be.
I totally agree that they are basically 2 steps ahead of all the competitors. And I personally noticed that in some cases, when, for example, I needed to have a meeting with my colleagues at work, we could have a Zoom meeting, but we all prefer to go to Population One just to talk in a private room for some reason. I don't know why.
That's funny too. We love, I mean, especially in the Wild Wild West, like all of our meetings were done in the saloon, of course. We were just like creating this new comp community and expanding the brand into competitive, and all of a sudden we're all in the playtest for season 2, and it was like, holy shit, this is the Wild West. Like they literally built us a map and are giving us all of our tags. It was a super exciting time for us. We did all of our meetings in there. We loved meeting in that area. After that, I kind of moved a lot of stuff to the kingdom. Everything's gotten really big now that most of it's done on Discord. Most of the people I worked with in the league organization would prefer Discord. It's a little bit more boring to me. But I think that, yeah, it's incredible. Like just being in here in the club, imagine a bunch of us in here with the right kind of music feed, getting rid of like this little beat that Big Box has, but just pumping the music in here and having a dance party and maybe, putting some cool sprays on the wall, man. And having fun. Like it's an interesting environment. If you've been in any of the social apps, I mean, obviously VR chat and a lot of other places kind of create the same thing. It's really just about being close to your friends. I feel way closer to you right now, and
Mhm.
I've lost track of, the rest of the world. My dog that's probably somewhere right behind me, just chilling. I'm just way more into this experience with you than I ever would be on Discord or on a cell phone. Maybe even like if I barely knew you and we were sitting at coffee, it'd probably be pretty cool. But all those awkward things that come with being in person, with how your breath might smell, what you might be wearing, who else might be making noise near us, all that stuff's kind of gone. Just me and you picking an environment in the game that made us both feel comfortable, and that's it, man. The human experience doesn't need much more else to start to just like assimilate to its immediate surroundings. I think there's a
Nice.
lot of value that those custom lobbies bring to social experiences as well.
Speaking about your own game experience, is there anything you find hard right now because you've been playing for probably longer than almost everybody else? Do you still learn something in the game?
Oh God, yeah. I can get better at so many different things. Comp's a lot different. I'm thinking in public lobbies, I'm just always, I'll pick up any gun. I love using all the different guns. I've certainly like an op is really what, especially in legions, is really what I love to be out there using the op and the sword. I really miss the katana's shield, which is like an element of the game that has never been replicated. It's a lot different running around with the Excalibur, the Cyberblade. You're in a battle with people. If you don't want to pull out a gun, you got to use builds, and you can't look them in the face. Back with the shield, you could pull it out and you could literally look your entire people in the face. You could stop their bullets. You could push forward to them. You could get close enough to kill them. It was a really cool element to the game. Um, so I mean, those are the two things I really love using, the sword and the op. But I'll use all the guns. I love using them all when I play in pub lobbies. So then, and you feel pretty confident playing in pub lobbies. I play with a lot of good players. We run through a lot of lobbies together. Can kill most players with any gun that I really have. Not like most average players, non-comp players. I mean, most good comp players kill me every time I see them. But then you get into competitive, and it's like, all right, I've got a few weapons that I really, really, really want to use because I'm most comfortable with them. But then you start to realize, like, like, it's all these situations as you kind of climb the ladder, and like these weapons aren't good for every situation. So I'm really limiting myself. So now I'm especially focused on really learning some of the nuances of different guns to try and use them more effectively in comp. So there's tons of stuff for me to learn about the DT, about the MP5, about the revolver, about the Seiko, guns that I'm not necessarily, like really adept with, and how to kind of it's so much to learn skill wise there. And then every game's a chess match. The zone strength's different, your loot's different, your opponent's ideas and movements are different. Different players die early, different players die late. There's a different amount of players fighting early and late. Everything's different. You end up on like a different corner of the map almost every time. That just happens to be the best position to get your team in. And like, how do you, from a tactician and from a shot caller, like how do you really position your team and position yourself to like maximize cover when you're fighting a team from here and there? Whereas last week you were fighting a team from there and a team coming from above. Like, how would you use that situation differently? If you're thinking on the game on that level, like I said, the game's been around for a year. There is not books and YouTube videos and courses that you can take to learn all this stuff. Like, we're all learning it as you go. So parts of the game, the strategy, the tactics, the different settings, how to maximize your cover and your movements, how to move like, through planes from here instead of from there because they got you killed there last time. Finding situations that like, oh wow, we've been in this situation before. That doesn't happen as often as people think. Big Ben taught me that. As our coach in Supreme, and this situation is probably not going to be replicated for 4 months. So you need to think of it in a different way than you're thinking about it. Why? Yeah, I guess that's a pretty good point, and it is true, and it is interesting sometimes when you do end up in situations that are fairly identical to something that you've done before in comp, and if you can think quickly enough to apply the things you learned like 2 months ago to this situation tonight, I might face in comp and be successful based on it. Those are some pretty exciting moments, I think, for myself, for like any team that's able to like kind of overcome things, because anything you work hard at, that you take time to think about, take time to fix, take time to evaluate about mistakes you've made in life and get the opportunities, whether it's small and in a video game or whether it's with a woman you love or whether it's with a friend that maybe you've let down. They're really great human experiences. Being a hyper emotional, hyper passionate person that really gets taken away by a lot of moments. Those moments provide a lot for me, for sure.
You talked about kind of learning and kind of developing. Do you have a special procedure or like some regime? Like, for example, after a, a difficult game, do you debrief with your team or how does it work?
It depends. I do, my teams are always sort of, I bring new players into comp, where I look around at my team and my family of people, whether it's the most wanted or Supreme WWW, kind of who doesn't really have the ideal spot. I kind of bring them in, new players that want to play. I generally have them play with me for a season. That's where I get to learn so much about them and figure out kind of where they're placed best. So my teams, and then I love the players I'm playing with now. I play with Vinny, the chain user, and Mark Tor. We've never played together, in comp, just like most of my teams. We definitely do. We've got Big Ben who breaks down all of our videos for our teams in Supreme. You wake up on Monday and your private team chat's got all the different breakdowns from each game from Big Ben. So that really drives the conversation for us. I spent most of my time though, when it comes to those moments, watching our higher end teams, the teams I've worked with for a long time, whether it's, Fugitives or Uprising now with Danderson and Scanter and Michael and Pintail, and spending as much time as I can with those other teams, sort of giving them my feedback, seeing what I think's working, and kind of like engaging with them. Those guys are at such a high level now that there's basically nothing I can offer them. But it was really exciting bringing those guys into comp, being relative unknown players, meeting them and finding them out there in these smaller teams and just identifying them as players that could be the best in the world, and kind of bringing them in and helping them, match up with players and develop their game, putting them in environments that can work, and seeing them now literally as the number one team in the world. They're number two behind Cobra. You can look at the standings and have a little bit of fun with Cobra Cartel and be like, oh, we're number one now, but we'll see how long that lasts. And it's really going to come down to the tournament at the end where everything's on the line. But in terms of like my own team, Big Bren does a lot of that for us in Supreme. I definitely watch tape. I watch tape with Hot Mess of her games and my games, and try and figure out. I'm most interested in shot calling. I'm definitely someone that really values my own ability to call the right rotation, see the zone, see the battlefield, know where other teams are. You kind of land right, and the zone shrinks. It's the first. You pay attention to where every other team lands. The zone shrinks, like how much do you know what teams are there and, where they're going to move? predicting their movements, then you find out where the weapons drop is going to go. That's going to definitely be like a magnet for certain teams in that area. You can kind of predict where the original conflicts are and kind of how to get your team in the best position. So me personally, when I'm reviewing tape, I'm listening to my callouts for my recordings of Vinny's stream. I'm looking at the third person camera from the shoutcaster, and I'm trying to see how often am I right about what teams were doing, when they were doing them, and where my callouts were. I focus a bit more on my own game than my team's game. I think that we've got a lot of my teams always are really new to comp, have a lot to learn. There's a lot more we can focus on, just in developing communication, developing movement, developing like how to balance our weapons loadouts, in scrims and stuff more than like we can really break down our last game and find more value in that than some of the basic stuff. Give Scanter a drop, dude. Scanter's taking some classes with Scanter. He's been number one in the season leaderboards right now. He's on the number one team in the world right now. He's won a lot of tournaments recently, whether it's legions or solos, and definitely one of the number one top ranked players in the world, top 10. He does a lot of private training, makes some money off of it, gets paid to do it with new players, with comp players. So if I really need some help with guns, with weapons recoils, with learning some of the nuances of using builds, using cover, where to fight from, how to peek and shoot a Seiko, I definitely reach out to the elite players and let them handle that.
I did organize a couple of local tournaments, but nothing even close to what you have done.
Yeah, I mean, a quick synopsis of that. We started with Toiko's tournaments and just kind of partnering with him, being willing to like do whatever he needed. Like Toiko inspired me so much. He's a lot like I like to get bigger and better. I like to be innovative. I like to take chances. I like to see things evolve. I don't like to see things stagnant and just keep them in place and let them run around in circles. And every week with Toiko, it was like like we would have so many fucking problems to deal with, so many mistakes that we made, so many problems that players like, pointed out to us. And it was always a challenge on like the next tournament, the next week, because it was a pandemic. So we had tournaments every single weekend. And throughout the week, we'd be like, how do we fix this? How do we do this better? And then it was always like, how do we make this bigger? What can we add? And that would always create new problems, but new exciting things. And we'd see how our things worked, and it would just get bigger and bigger and bigger and better and snowballed. And then the custom lobbies kind of came in. And that's where everything changed. We were able to run much bigger tournaments. We were able to organize them on a whole different level. We started creating spreadsheets that did a lot of the math for people and figuring out how lobby hosts would best run things. What are the best zone settings? What are the best size groups? What are the, just everything was so exciting for such a long time. We kind of split off when, Toiko wanted to just run the PPL, which was just an elite division. It was really exhausting. We were both exhausted. We had our major tournament at the end of like the tournament era for us, just before we were starting our league era. And it was like supposed to be like a really big party for us. It's just a really big like moment and a sigh of relief because all the work, it's really exhausting. And you deal with like, you got 100 players, you're dealing with 100 players problems and 100 players praise, and that takes up a lot of time. You want to give your community a lot of attention. And then that last night, there was one of the biggest scandals like ever happened right at the end of the game. Didn't really turn out to be a cheating scandal. It was more like, the community just blowing up on how some people were behaving and things that people were saying, even though like the idea of cheating and teaming wasn't really implemented in the game. That just like everybody wants to have something to hate on when you're the best team, or when you win, or when people don't like you already and you make a mistake, and like that night, instead of me and him just kind of partying in VR chat and dancing the night away to EDM like we like to do, we spent like 4 or 5 hours in the middle of the night dealing with all this drama. At that point, Toiko wanted to let go of the tournaments really wisely. It was exhausting. He ran the PPL. I split over and kind of created the PPC. It was always designed to be more of a feed farm system. Like I'm much bigger. He was more focused on having that elite league that can draw sponsors and have the elite players and be the best show on Twitch. And that's fucking awesome. That's exactly that's awesome. That's exactly what every game needs. But for me, it was more about building a community. I was with Wild West and Comp, and we were really new starting out. We were building some good teams, but like the original teams in the game, you look at Supreme, you look at Cobra Cartel, Havoc, KOS, VRS, Homeland, all the original OGs of the clans. Like nobody was there to be like, hey, you guys want to build a Wild West? Like, let us help you. Let us give you our resources. Let us tell you what to do. Let us give you players and ideas and all this different stuff on how to be successful. There was a lot more of an elitist vibe on like figure it out yourself. I created the Pop One Players Club for the exact opposite of that. Got help from amazing community builders and people. Boris, Lumber Snack at the time, SSJ, those guys over there, Brandon and Winter Birdie, all the amazing people of Wild West, Ellie Mist and Lucor and Mr. Awesome and a number of those people. Not as quite as close with them as I used to. But it was all specifically built so if you were a brand new player that had never played comp before, you had now at a place you could just walk into like the club and be like, hey, like I want to dance with somebody, like I want to play comp, I want to learn how to do it, how do we scrim? It's all set up there for you. We just built the club for you to walk into, and everything's there, dude. Here's where all the teams are that are now building and trying to catch up to the other teams. These are the people you might mesh with. These are the people that you won't. These are when scrims are set up every single time at night. We will score them for you, and you can see how well that you're doing. So when the tournaments and the leagues come into play, you can figure out. And so many different brands, and a lot of the brands that are out there today were created in the PPC scrims, which ultimately became the league. We had a big split off for Mob Toiko at some point. A lot of drama evolving around that. Yeah, there was a personal change big time. I think that people like Ellie Mist, Philophosaurus could probably like really identify like the stark line between like super friend with everybody wizard to just like dark wizard, to a degree. When you take on so much responsibility, like it's nothing compared to what me and Toiko took on, nothing compared to like ultimately when the PPC Mob Toiko PPL, the community grew to be hundreds of players. And then we went from being like sort of the farm system and the lower divisions, developing teams, developing brands, didn't really have rules. It was just like, come in here, play, have fun, be cool to people. All of a sudden, we build the Diamond division, and we are bringing the best players in the world into the game, but we're not just like a secondary league. We are now much bigger, much deeper, much more important than the PPL was. It's just a fact. It's not an insult. It's what the Diamond division, when me and Mud and Phil and Winter Birdie created that, TBG Dog, we created that. We created what was now the best league in the world. At that point, you take on a lot of responsibility to make sure it's a place that welcomes all different types of players, not just newer people. And like, I'm not someone that gives away control lightly. I'm not someone that ever like could get it in my head that the people I was working with could make better decisions than I could. I wasn't always right about that, but it was really like I wanted to be involved in everything. You take on every single person's dispute, whether it's in game, whether it's personal, whether they don't like your rules, what you're doing, your processes, everything. Everybody comes to PPC. Everybody came. I put everything on my plate and on my table. And no matter what decision you make, somebody's unhappy. And it gets to the point where like it was crazy. I mean, whether I was being called all sorts of shit in DMs or behind my back or the N-word, faggot, like just so much stuff that just would come at you that at the end of the day really started pushing me the wrong way. People creating fake Whyzard accounts, going into lobbies, teabagging people, saying shit to children, saying bad shit to women, like in my name, calling my work. Like, finding out a bad idea to tell people where I work, because now I've got people upset about a decision I made in game, like calling my work and getting in my personal life. And like ultimately, like my power allowed me to really transition from one person to another and not have it cost me much. Because at the end of the day, it was Whyzard show, the PPC, and I had great people working with me, doing a lot of stuff, doing a lot of work that allowed the PPC to be what it was, whether it was Lucifer or your friend Mud or TBG Dog, or, I mean, the list really does go on. I've mentioned a lot of the people there, I think already, that were really significant and important. Philophosaurus, again, was just really important to the growth of it and the type of community we were building at first. But now, the nice people don't want the elite players that really have behavioral issues in our Discord anymore. They want to punish them. I want the elite players in here. And I want to figure out a way that we can keep them all here without banning people and kicking people or excluding people from something that is now like the pinnacle of what they can do. So like all of those different pressures on me, all of the now different types of people that were coming at me for different things, like I'm from the south side of Boston. I have no problem dishing it to people. I actually kind of enjoyed for a while the transition from being, the sort of light for everybody to come to and learn comp and have a really good time around, to sort of just being the dark villain on his throne, holding his power. We switched from WWW to create Most Wanted, which was specifically created to be like, this is how I got lost in it, to be like a villainous brand. Not necessarily. Like we always made a clear line that like there's a line between toxic and villainous. Like there are things that are just not allowed no matter what, like homophobism, inappropriate sexual conduct or material, like profane language, racism, just attacking somebody for no reason. Like it's just like none of that's really allowed. That's not villainous, toxic. But like we definitely prided ourselves on like uncanceling people, taking people that were very much looked down poorly in the community, bringing them into our family, giving them people that would be tolerant towards them, not shame them, not ban them, not reject them, but kind of like help them change to a degree, but it wasn't really like entirely required. There was like this really stark transition in me um, at one point in the comp community, and I definitely got a little carried away with it at times. Ultimately, I just got super taxed. Like it's just like at the end of the day, I was looking at the PPC Discord for like 3 days in a row, just wanting to delete it. Wasn't as happy with like sort of like, wait a minute, like I really enjoyed being, the bartender up on top of the bar, just like bringing everybody into the party and having a really good time. And I kind of enjoyed like sort of having the different types of people around me to sort of like go at the people, my haters, go at the people that had like no right to be coming at us and be a bit more defensive, a bit more aggressive, put people in their place. But then over the course of time too, I just realized like so much of the fun had been gone from that. And like so much of what I was doing now was like dealing with people outside of my family. Again, like it was all about building up the people in WWW and giving them something to have a lot of fun with. And then it just became about having to pay attention to the rest of the community. At some point, I kind of realized all that, realized like I was getting nothing out of it. I was a lot unhappy, a lot less happy, and ultimately, kind of reached out to Complete and Complete Guarantee ran, Mob Toiko, like Toiko left the whole community at one point. I mean, there's a lot of drama here. You need an entirely different episode if you wanted the truth of a lot of these stories and sort of like the untold behind the scenes, girls gone wild type version of things. But ultimately, I reached out to Mob Toiko and Complete Guarantee. When you look around, there's one thing you look at Complete, and a lot of the people that are running ARC, and just it's really hard to get people that will just sit there and give their life up to help run this type of community and to run leagues, and that they don't even like Complete plays in it. Lucifer doesn't really play in comp. Like she's just there helping build and lead a community and doing things that they don't even have professional expertise in and they're not making money from. A lot of people come like, hey, Whyzard, what can I do? Complete, can I be a mod? I'll help with this, I'll help with that. And understandably, they last for a week or two. A lot of it's because they took on some responsibility and they realize like how much hate and bullshit that they're actually getting for just volunteering and doing their job. Most people can't stand that. They're gone in 1 week or two. In terms of like my vision for the future of the comp scene from the PPC to where it needs to go and still hasn't gotten to, I needed people that really were committed and that were devoted and that would put work in and that would be selfless and that would be able to handle all the BS and like Complete what you could probably say like number one enemy like in the community, both personally and just professionally. And it was just like, sort of respecting him and Loomis and what they were really trying to do over there and trying to not have the community divided and bring it all together. And also, like I said to him at the time, like I think I was the best person to build this. I just don't think I'm the best person to run it. And it's time that we maybe figure out how to bring things together. And, Complete, just like, God, we spent hours and hours and hours on the phone for a couple of weeks before we really brought everybody else in on what we were up to and bringing the whole community together, which ultimately is ARC Leagues now today, which I'm not involved with anymore. It's a whole nother story. That would probably go viral for you. Don't really need to get into a lot of those details. But there's the community itself has grown from, I've seen it grown from just a handful of teams playing in tournaments before custom lobbies to an ambitious new like development of what ARC is doing now, breaking the divisions down, expanding their divisions, making them smaller, but making more of them, making a more step tier ladder. Going to have 6 divisions now, maybe I think is where they're going towards. 160 teams. Like hopefully that grows to 200 here soon. You've got casters. I mean, that was the thing. We barely had a couple of casters at the beginning. Trying to get out there and find anybody that was willing to cast. Dozens of like casters. All these people. You've got all these clans like graphics artists, content creators. Like all of this stuff has blossomed. It's given these people opportunities. Like Hot Mess Mom, like my girlfriend who also helps run the clans that I run. She's now gone from like just making posters, and then all of a sudden like getting into making content and now running discords, and like, to her, I can hear it in her when she talks about it. It's like, holy shit, like she found all these talents that like she had no idea that she was really good at. She loves them. She wants to like develop a career, like if she ever had the opportunity, off the skills and the experience that she's actually getting in here. That goes so far beyond, what my teams are. It's like everybody out there from Cryptic to the VRAS to just all the other big clans are presenting all of these opportunities for people to learn more about themselves, to maybe find trades and things that they're passionate at, or to take things that they are passionate at, give them a platform to grow and to gain experience and to meet people. And it's like, it's really, really beautiful. I'm not as much of a part of the future of the comp scene anymore and being a builder and like a leader. I still run events and tournaments. I actually like to plug our tournament before this video is over. But it is really exciting to see where it's going. I was there at the beginning. I spent a lot of time building it. It's still something that I'm very much in love with and very much want to see succeed. Whether ARC survives the test of time or not, like I do hope it does. There's some good friends of mine in there. I know what it's like, whether I have personal issues with people, I know what it's like to, put tons of work in and to kind of maybe lose some of it and what that feels like. I certainly still have a lot left with Supreme and, Supreme Esports and with my friends and the stuff that we're building there. And it's really all the time in the world I have for it at the moment now anyway. My clans and teams always suffered while I was running the leagues and stuff, and they don't suffer like that anymore from my lack of attention or my ability to grow things and kind of achieve the things that we want to within our clan, which is real. I'm really happy with. So I'm not sure, I kind of got off on a tangent there, but I was really trying hard to not say things that I shouldn't say.
Oh my god, it's so much deeper than the game. It's just a first-person shooter.
I mean, I could literally detail like every single team that's out there, every single clan's history, the league, like the step-by-step processes of how like scoring systems and just tournaments and events and organizations just kind of like grew from the beginning to the end. It would take an entire another video, spend an hour straight talking about it. I doubt anybody has like more knowledge in one brain than I do on all that stuff. And at the end of the day, like I play the whole Skyrim character and the fantasy novel out there, and I have fun like having my sort of rivalries with people and you kind of get into it sticking up for your friends. But at the end of the day, dude, I just got so much respect for everybody out there. Cobra Cartel is one of my rivals. Nobody's been there longer. Del and Del Pon and Major Wise Guy, who really have built that and run the show there, to literally run one of the most like professional organizations, most successful organizations, great branding. Like I don't know what I would do without Cobra Cartel. I honestly, like at WWW, weren't quite on that level, but in Most Wanted, like we definitely were, and in Supreme, we definitely are, and like without like Cobra Cartel, I would feel empty, so like while they're our rivals and while they might be people there that don't like me or something, or like it's always just like I'm grateful for them, and I think that it's really important that at the end of the day, people can kind of step back and just detach themselves from some of the stuff. There certainly has been stuff that's gotten extremely personal and into my personal life from the community. But even at that, at the end of the day, that takes me a little bit longer to get over and to move past. But I would never want to, step away from all this. I do hope the future's really bright for those of us in this game. It would suck to see, a game come out all of a sudden and just take like a giant portion of the Pop 1 player base away. It would be like devastating, I think, to a lot of people, especially to me and a lot of other people at my level of organization and stuff. And if I could finish up, I mean, I don't know how much time you have left or how long you want.
I feel bad that I took so much time of your from your day.
It's honestly, it's really nice to kind of be here and to having a different medium and a different platform to kind of talk to people about. I know that in Supreme, I'm supposed to be here, propping our event and sort of, talking about a bit more of, what we're up to and promoting us like a bit more. I think that, at the end of the day, though, it's really like I've just always been focused on growth of the community and like, it's hard for me to not kind of focus on those things in my relationships with people and sort of like the effect that we all have on each other is really so much more of my focus and what consumes me more than anything. But Supreme is the latest clan that I'm a part of. I run it with your friend Mud. We each own half of it. Again, he lives down the street from me. Us kind of merging forces. He used to have no respect for me and what I was doing in WWW until we won all 4 spots in this tournament. It's a long story. And he finally like gave me the time of day and being like, oh wow, I never really believed anything you were saying about your teams, but that's really impressive. And like someday, dude, my teams will be as good as your teams, and like we'll merge together and we'll do something really awesome, and it'll all be from North Weymouth. And yeah, we always talked about it someday. We finally got our teams together, Most Wanted, which was the brand that I'd created and built with Danderson, with Merake, with Hot Mess Mom, Pintail, Scanter, a lot of people that are still part of our family and still part of Supreme. We definitely became the chief rivals probably to the other top teams in the game. If you look at a lot of the teams at the very top have been there for a year. There's very few new brands, new clans that have come in and broken into the top 10 and stayed there. I think, I don't know, maybe Triple N, even though they've been there for a long time. But when it comes down to another clan that's brought multiple teams there, I don't think anybody's really done we've done since like Cobra and Supreme and Homeland / Hexalinks, Vortex now that they're called, like have really established themselves at the top. So that's been a really interesting experience. A lot of things were happening. I have much bigger ambitions now. Like we now have the Mercenaries of Gun Raiders, another game. I'm very much have always had like 7 to 10 Pop 1 teams, but started to turn my focus more towards like what would make us successful as an esports organization. Like, can we make content? Can we have big social media accounts? Can we have more elite teams in other games than like more teams in Pop 1? So it's already going sort of in that direction. We merged our teams together to create like a super team. So, my history of running events with your friend Mud, I'm pretty sure we've run the largest prize pool Pop 1 events of all time. Mud ran the first major one, $2,000 prize pool about a year ago. When Big Box threw their invitational, we kind of threw Supreme was left out because Big Box doesn't like some of Supreme's players. Supreme was left out. So your friend Mud and Red, and the Sweaty Fight Club, they ran an event called, for the community. It was a $2,000 prize pool. Mud raised a bunch of money from the community to get that prize pool out there. Through that for the entire community. It was an open tournament. It was a lot of fun. After that, I think that the next biggest tournament, I think Rex Ryan had a pretty big tournament. I'm not sure what the prize pool was there. But during the merger, there was an anniversary tournament last year. It was initially supposed to be a good bundle of money from Mob Toyko. Ultimately, like a week before, like turns out like there was issues like getting that money and that funding and that sponsorship. So we were kind of standing there in the PPC kind of like, oh man, that's a bummer. Like we don't like flexing things we don't have. We kind of jumped the gun on that. I'm not saying that Mob Toyko promised all this stuff and then didn't quite deliver. It was just like probably us jumping the gun and hyping something up a bit more that we now really had to step up to the table. Me and Mud got together. I think we got about $1,500 together from the community. Since then, Most Wanted, as we started to form, we threw out events every month. The Legions tournaments have been a huge hit. Legions, you familiar with Legions and all the different moves
Yes,
of the
yep.
game?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so our Legions tournaments were huge hits. And again, the next 2 probably biggest prize pools in Pop history. So between me and Mud, we've got a lot of history throwing events like that. We teamed up with Supreme and our team. You're creating these super teams for Legions. That's what's really exciting. Listening to the comms, but also seeing, Flow State and Cobra NA teaming up together. Can anybody beat those teams? Can anybody beat this super team? And for us, it was like the only players, like that we can mix with here that we felt like could actually take our best players and their best players and give them a run for their money. The unbeatable team was Fugitives, which is our Most Wanted's best team, and Supreme. And they generally have one team, one great group of players that's a lot deeper than 3. But we kind of merged those together and we had this epic tournament, and it was incredible. The fight for the last game, we really shouldn't have won. Like we needed to have like one of the best games, clutch performances I've ever seen a comp team pull off in a final match, and ultimately beat the Flow State and Cobra Cartel team. And that's really, like I'd already started these different plans in Most Wanted, and that's really the night where it was just like, we want to beat Cobra Cartel, dude. We very much, I don't know what'll happen with my life if we do ever beat Cobra. like what else do I have to shoot for? But like we want to beat them. They probably want somebody to want to beat them. I'm not trying, I doubt they're going to take this the wrong way. But like when it comes to Tech Orso and Clev and the leadership of Cobra Cartel, just always maintained a really high level of game for all of their teams. I think that, they're definitely the pinnacle. They're the people at the top that everybody would still look at as the team to beat for sure, no matter how good that we might be doing right now. Ultimately, it was really about merging and taking our best players and creating this super team. Ultimately, we ended up keeping, and we ended up building 4 teams in the Diamond Division. We ended up with 4 different spots between our 2 teams, and we kind of mixed and matched pieces, but we kept Fugitives together, kind of brought the best players from some of the other teams in Most Wanted that we left behind or that we're leaving anyway, and kind of stacked that team a little bit more with Pintail and playing with Scanter and Danderson and
Mm-hmm.
Michael. And they're doing really well now. We've got 4 teams that are, again in the top 8. So that merger was just like something that took like 10 days, really. They had just had
Wow.
like, we had this really dumb partnership with Havoc that kind of went south in like 24 hours. So like Cryptic and Flow State, Cryptic and Cobra Cartel and Supreme, who were all like really pushing against me at the time, personally and professionally. Like they trolled us with this fake merger. They released a poster and all this stuff. It was pretty funny. It made no sense to me at all, but it got to me for an entire day of my life. And it like the number one thing that it got to me was just like that. And, me and Mud had some beef at the time, and it was the first time like as friends for a while who spent like all summer together at my bar. Um, we're kind of at odds, and I felt like I'd lost my opportunity to do what I always wanted to do with Mud, which was merge together and build this team that we could run from the same neighborhood and just kind of like take our friendship to a whole new level. Really bothered me for an entire day of my life. I'll admit that to everybody watching this now. I didn't talk to Hot Mess. Like she'd best not be reaching out to me right now today. I binged some show. I think it was Raised by Wolves on Amazon or something on HBO Max. Like just all day long, I tuned out from Discord and everything, and kind of woke up the next day, thought a bit about it, kind of was like, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. Didn't seem very real to me. I was like, this isn't going to work out one way or the other. So let's just kind of like let it bide time. And then I found out a little bit before the old the Legions tournament that it was all just kind of like a fake. It was a troll, which to me was like really exciting because like all of a sudden like here comes this Legions tournament. Like if my boys can team with Supreme and we can win this, like me and Mud will merge our teams. Like this will happen one way or another. And so that night was really exciting for us. It was literally one of the best things aside from what Tech 9 did like a year ago in that big like final tournament where he had like this monster game to catch his team, tie it up, push everybody to overtime, which was one of the best things I've ever seen in athletics. Like what our team did that night in that last game was one of the best things I've ever watched in sports, and definitely one of the top 2 or 3 moments I've ever seen any team clutch up and do something like legendary. And that was just so exciting for all of us. Mud was at his grandmother's birthday party, I think, across the street, drinking it up. And like, we were all having a really good time in Most Wanted. The players were just so relieved to finally beat Cobra at something. They just win everything. They were such great players, great kids. They just do really well at everything. So it was really exciting. And we definitely rode all that emotion and all of that like positivity and that new like element to brand what we think is the best team in the world right now. Now there are policies coming from ARC that definitely look like they're designed to break us up. So some things will be changing, but we're having a really great time. We are now taking Most Wanted's events, me and Mud's, history of running events together, going to create what we think will now be like the 5th, whatever. We're going to have the 5th largest or maybe the 2nd largest prize pool tournament in history. It's going to be a solos event. It's next Friday. It's on April 8th. It's just in Cyber City. It's called the Supreme Esports Cyber City Solo Tournament. We're giving away the first place prize, the B Haptics vest, the X16. Or XI6 or something like that. I'm not sure. We'll have all the information out tonight on those types of details. I also like really try to be innovative. We're trying to give away and pay out as many players that has ever been paid out in a tournament before. Those details will all be released tonight. Players can earn prizes through everything, through their age group, through their clan that they're in. They can win prizes on the best pin drop, on the most sword kills in a match, on the best jump pad kill. There's lots of different things that we're giving prizes out there for that we're really excited about. It is a $10 entry fee. So one of the things, it's tough for some of the kids to get a little bit of funding for that. I generally pay for the Supreme kids. I hope that a lot of the other clan leaders kind of do that for their kids. We are giving everybody opportunities to win that money back. Like under 18 players will have their own special prize pool throughout the course of the tournament, where those kids have lots of different opportunities to win their $10 back, win $20 back, and things like that. So we're trying to be as innovative as ever. So based on the $1,000 committed prize pool, which could expand, I'm covering a lot of it. The entry fees will cover a lot of it. If we get 75 to 100 people, that will expand to something bigger. Plus the value is about 600. I mean, you're waiting 2 months for one of these Haptics Fests if you order them now. So the value is probably even a bit bigger than the actual
Nice.
monetary value of the
Nice.
Haptics Fest that we're giving away, which has been donated by Wheatley, somebody who connected us as well. So that's next week, April 8th. We're trying to run events. We're not trying to run a league. We're trying to help our content creators, our streamers, our players, everybody just get more exposure and try and create one of the funnest events that the game's ever had. So hopefully it's successful, and that's sort of the direction that we're going in for sure. Supreme, we're really excited about it. Coming for Cobra.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. We should probably
Oh.
make another video because I can listen to your story like for
God,
another
everybody
hour or
right
two.
now is laughing. Like nobody warned you that Whyzard can talk forever. I definitely like looking at the time now too. It is pretty crazy. That's an hour and a half of our time. I definitely would be interested. There's a lot of other stuff. You know, you could get a group of people in one of your interviews together too. You know, especially like there's a lot. The history of comp. History of the clans, you know, it'd be really interesting to get Philophosaurus's take on it, and someone who literally has, you know, had different model. Like he was the kind of originator of the big clan model, at least the one that survived from the beginning of the days. Like Philophosaurus, great person to probably reach out to and get so much history, and definitely a very different insight on family building and community building and what's important maybe than my take on it, for sure. There's a lot of other people. I think the community leaders are really where you want to kind of turn to kind of get a little bit different content. It's really cool seeing Goodbet and some other people that you interviewed. High level players got a lot to offer as well.
Okay, let's check. Guys, if you watch this video, please let me know in the comments below if you want the second part or the third part after that.
Part 2, honestly, I would promise everyone the complete untold story, the you know, maybe 18 plus stories of all the different drama and things that have happened in the community, in my personal life, in Vegas, anywhere. If you guys want it, I will do it. There will be nothing I hold back whatsoever. So we'll see if that gets a little bit of a response. But thank you so much for your time, man. It's been really cool talking about some things I wasn't expect to talk to, and just kind of having a different platform to get some stuff out there. You probably need to break this into 2 parts, to be honest. I'm looking forward
Thank you very
to
much.
how it goes.
Thanks a lot.
We should play soon too. I would really love to spend some time.
Would love to too. Yeah, would love to do that too.
Yeah. Cool.
Cheers.
We'll go hit the dance floor.